Hey guys, let's talk about credit reports and credit bureaus. So, why do they treat you with contempt? And what do I mean by that? Well, normally we think of contempt, at least in a legal setting. That's my world I live in. Contempt is when you refuse to do something the judge tells you to do. And I'll hold you in contempt of court. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the attitude of contempt, of being condescending towards you. That's how the credit bureaus view you, feel about you, if you dare to have the audacity to dispute something that you say is false or incomplete on your credit report. They look at you like, what in the world are you doing? Why would you dare challenge us with this? And then to take it a step further, if they don't fix it, so they leave false information, they leave incomplete information on your credit report, and you sue them for money damages. Oh my goodness. They just have this complete come apart and they go, what in the world are you doing? You're horrible to do this. We are the credit bureaus. We have lawyers at big fancy law firms and they have, the third or the fourth or the fifth after their name. And they talk to me about, well, John, my granddaddy was a judge and my daddy was a judge. And I go, so what am I supposed to do with that? Okay. They go, well, you're supposed to be impressed with that. No, not impressed with that. So why do they treat you with contempt? Because you are an annoyance to them if you dispute anything on your credit report. They're in the business of getting information from furnishers, banks, credit card companies, debt collectors, mortgage companies. They're paid to receive this information. Think about this. They get paid for companies to report the information to them, and then they package it up and they sell your credit reports to debt collectors, to marketing companies, to mortgage companies, credit card companies, auto loan companies, personal finance companies. They sell that so they make money coming in and going out. It's a great business. Well, guess what costs them money? What costs them money is when you raise your hand, you say, hey guys, you've got me mixed up with my brother or my sister or some guy I don't know that is in my state, or you have false information, you have missing information on my credit report. I want you to fix this. Hey, you've got my landline phone number where I moved 20 years ago. You still have that on my report. You have my name misspelled. You have old addresses I haven't lived at forever. I want you to fix that. Get rid of it. Well, now the credit bureau is having to spend money. They're having to spend money to investigate your dispute. So you would think, since you have no choice in whether a credit bureau keeps a file on you and you can't control what they have on there other than to dispute, you would think when they get a dispute, they go, oh my goodness, we better take this very, very seriously. Let's have the best, most qualified people look at this. And if it's right, we won't change anything. If it's wrong, we'll fix it or delete it. That's what you would think, because that's what a good business would do. That's not what these businesses do. They say, let's see, how can we possibly make this as cheap as possible when investigating disputes? Well, the cheapest way is just not to investigate it. So they might send you a form letter back that says, oh, we think this is not really you disputing this. And so we refuse to investigate for your own protection. Like, really? Or they just don't respond at all. And then when we point that out, they go, oh, well, there's this thing called COVID. You can't expect us to respond to disputes. We don't have the manpower to do that. Like, well, but you're still getting the money in, right, from the furnishers? Oh, yeah. And you're still charging companies to look at my credit report? Oh, yeah. And by the way, they charge you as the consumer for your credit report. They try to convince you to do their credit monitoring. So, little side note, people ask me, well, why is there such huge amounts of identity theft or where files are mixed or merged together? Because the credit bureaus are sloppy. And say, well, don't they care about that? No. What they've done is they've looked at that and said, we have a huge problem with identity theft, with mixed merged files. We could either spend a ton of money to fix it, or we could use that as our marketing and say, you know what? You better pay us $20, $30, $40 a month and we'll help prevent identity theft. Does that sound familiar? Like, let's see, what if we decided to form a gang of people and we go up and down the street to shop owners and we say, boy, it'd sure be a shame if something happened to you, if your store got vandalized, people robbed you, took money out of your cash register, stole your merchandise. That would be a terrible shame. But if you just pay us a certain amount of money per month, we'll keep that from happening. That's what the credit bureaus do, okay? So they're making money as the information comes in, as it goes out, and they're charging you money to say, hey, we'll make sure your stuff is accurate. Now, if you dispute it, now they have to pay money to somebody to investigate. So they go overseas, the vast majority of them do, to places that don't even speak English. And they say, we're going to find a company that will do it the cheapest possible way. We don't care about the accuracy because you're not their customer. All we care about is checking a box and saying, yeah, we did an investigation. It was lousy. These are not even our employees. We have no idea what they're doing. In other words, when we sue them and say, we want to know what your vendor did in India. Oh, we have no idea. We have no control over them. Like, that's not our problem. Yeah, actually, it is your problem because you're supposed to be investigating our disputes. And so they just ignore your dispute. They send you a form letter, try to get you to go away. They've done the math. If they send out 10,000 form letters a day saying, we think this is not a legitimate dispute, maybe 1,000 will follow up. They just skipped 9,000 disputes. That's great for them. Okay. Or they just don't respond at all. Most people won't do anything. If you sue them, they'll try and convince you or your lawyer, if you or your lawyer don't know, sort of how this process works, that it's okay that they didn't do the dispute. They'll say, oh, the CFPB blessed us last year because of COVID. We don't have to investigate. That's not what CFPB said. And frankly, I said this back when it first came out in, I think, April of 2020. I said, I ain't the CFPB. I didn't give you a pass on doing disputes. The CFPB may have said, well, we won't, hammer you in a regulatory act. I ain't the CFPB. I can still sue you, okay? So they do things as cheaply as possible because they really don't care about getting your report accurate. What they care about is getting the money in, sending when they send out credit reports, they get more money in and convincing you to pay money. And then they'll ship your information over to India, to Colombia, to these different places. And we don't know what types of controls they have over there. We don't know what's happening with their information. Obviously, Equifax, not the brightest bulb, right? As far as keeping your information safe. And so that's how they view you. So what should be your view? Should you say, oh my goodness, these people, they look at me like I'm horrible and I'm embarrassed and their lawyers are very condescending to me and to my lawyers. And so, we just sort of shrink down and say, well, I'm sorry. No, that's not the attitude we should have. If we're doing legitimate disputes and if they are not fixing those legitimate disputes, understanding the law, both as it's written and as it's interpreted by the judges. And we have a lot of videos on this channel about here are case decisions. So don't get your information from somebody, some supposed guru who says, oh, well, let me tell you what the law is. Why don't you read the law? Why don't you read case opinions? Because what these so-called gurus are out there telling people most of the time is wrong. I mean, I sit there in seminars and, I watch these people up on stage and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this person is really an idiot. Okay. And they may sincerely believe what they're telling people. Of course, they're usually selling that. Okay. So they have sort of a bias there, even when they know they're wrong. Hey, if the money keeps flowing, keep selling it. But the point is, if you're doing this the right way, legitimate disputes, and when they don't get fixed or the account doesn't get deleted, then you bring legitimate, very well thought out lawsuits in the right court with the right pleadings. I'm going to tell you this, if you do it without a lawyer, I think you're very, very foolish. Get the right lawyer involved. Doesn't have to be me, but get the right lawyer to help you so that you're bringing a solid case. And then when they treat you with contempt and their lawyers are this way and the people that work at these bureaus are this way, the attitude ought to be, I take this as a compliment, okay? That somebody like you, remember, these credit bureaus, they're making money as they get the information. They don't care that it's accurate. They make money as they send out the information. And even when you dispute, they won't usually listen to you, or they farm it out to some foreign country. If they treat you with contempt, hey, that's a compliment, okay? And let me just say this about contempt. Here, maybe this is a better example I could use. Let's say that you go through all your reports, you find all the inconsistencies, all the incomplete information, all the just flat out wrong information, and you prepare a letter. It might take you an hour, 5 hours, 10 hours, prepare this very detailed letter, and you give them attachments and enclosures, and you make it so crystal clear. So any normal person reading that letter be like, wow, this is false information. I need to fix this or delete it. And then you think, I spent 4, 6, 10 hours preparing this letter. Surely I'll get a personal letter back from the bureaus. No. First of all, about a third of the time, even if you send a certified mail, you won't get any response from a bureau. They'll just completely ignore you. Just like, we don't care, okay? Again, they treat you with contempt. You spend all this time, they're like, we don't care about you. Or if they respond, it may be with a form letter that says, well, we don't think this is you. You didn't include your driver's license, even though you include your driver's license. You didn't include a recent bill or statement showing your name and address. You included that, okay? They say, well, you weren't specific about it. You were very specific. They just send a form letter. It's just to stall. It's just to treat you with contempt. Even if they do respond, it still is an automated letter and they won't address. So you may ask all sorts of questions like, hey, Equifax, why, if I paid this off in April, are you reporting me late in May? If the account was closed in April, I paid it off in April, I have a zero balance in April, how can I be late in May? Please explain that to me. You think you're going to get a response back? No. You should. It's very condescending. It's very much treating you with contempt when they won't give you a response. But just understand, they're not going to respond to you with a personal letter. Now, we ask those questions when we do dispute letters because they always have the option to respond with a real human being actually taking the time, showing you a little bit, just the tiniest bit of respect for all the time and effort that was put into that letter. Maybe they'll respond to you. And if they don't and we sue them, well, then they get to explain to a judge. They get to explain to a jury. And remember, judges have credit reports. Jurors have credit reports. They get to explain why, even though there's a lot of time and very specific disputes in your letter, that they can't be possibly bothered to do anything other than give you this automated response. Okay? So you say, hey, why are you not including information for the months of May, June, and July? They just report back, we verified this. Yeah, but I asked you a very specific question. Well, we can't spend any time responding to these things. We can't spend any time actually answering questions because, again, you're not their customer. And when they're investigating disputes, they are losing money. So their objective is not to get it right. Their objective is to close it as quickly, as cheaply as possible. And by the way, if they can avoid getting sued, that's wonderful. But they also know hardly anybody files lawsuits against them because they have this image of we're the big, powerful credit bureaus and we have these big, fancy lawyers. And there's no way you can stand against us. That's absolutely false. If you're doing legitimate disputes, you do your homework, you get the right lawyer, you bring the right case in the right court with the right pleadings, the right allegations, and you handle your case in the right way, you can absolutely go after these guys, okay? So again, they treat us with contempt. They're condescending to us. We should not shy away from that. We should say, hey, I take that as a compliment, and our action should be just understand this is who they are. So I think years ago I told this story. I heard it from Tony Robbins. I don't know where he heard it from. But it's the story of the frog and the scorpion. It's a silly story, but I think you'll remember it. And this is how I want you to think about the credit bureaus. So as the story goes, there's this frog and this scorpion, and they're on this side of a river, and both of them want to get on the other side. The scorpion says, Mr. Frog, will you swim across and let me get on your back? The frog goes, are you crazy, Mr. Scorpion? You'll sting me and I'll die. And the scorpion goes, oh my goodness, Mr. Frog, do you think I'm an idiot? If I'm on your back and you're swimming across and I sting you and you die, guess what? I'll die. That's a pretty good argument. Frog goes, okay, get on my back. It's about halfway across. Scorpion stings him, and the frog is dying. And as the frog's dying, the frog goes, Mr. Scorpion, why did you do that? I'm dying. You're going to die. And the scorpion goes, that's what we do. We sting frogs. Okay. Again, silly story, but that's how I view the credit bureaus. Like, why are they so sloppy with your very important personal information? That's what they do. Why do they not care about doing disputes the right way? That's just who they are. Okay. So we can get mad and we can say this is so unfair and unjust and how dare they have this attitude towards us. And to be incompetent and then be contemptuous towards you. Like, why would they do that? It's just who they are. That's what we're dealing with. So we can get mad at it, or we can say, you know what? I know that's who they are. It's sort of like the law of gravity, right? I can't get mad at the law of gravity. Like, that's who these people are. But understand that, do legitimate, proper disputes, very, very specific, point out every inaccuracy, incompleteness, false information. And then when they don't fix it, sue them in the right way. Very strong, powerful lawsuit. And stick to your guns and go through that lawsuit. Be willing to go all the way to trial. And when they realize that that's your attitude and those are your actions, you know what happens? All this contempt and being condescending towards you, it changes. Now, they may never express this to you, but inside, here's what they feel. It's not contempt. It's not being condescending. They feel fear. They are afraid. Because if you can expose this to a jury, all those people on the jury, the judge, everybody sitting in that courtroom is going, wow, is that how they would treat me? Now, obviously, we can't say that as lawyers, but that's just human nature. When we're confronted with something, we think back in our own mind about, do I have an experience that's like that? Or what if this happened to me? And they don't want this to get out, just how horrible their procedures are. And so they put up this front of, we're so arrogant and condescending towards you, and you better take this little bitty, I'm going to throw a couple dollars your way and you go away. And when you don't do that, and they know that you're serious about going to trial, and they know that you know what the law is, they get afraid. And that is good for them. They need to feel some fear, because if they feel enough of that fear, they'll change. They'll actually start caring about doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is having accurate credit reports. And when you dispute, taking those disputes very legitimately, seriously, and putting a lot of effort into them to make sure that they are getting the correct information on your credit report. That would be great. Okay? They'll only do that if you push through, you ignore this contempt, this condescension that they have, and you push them hard. So that's my little rant for you today. And let me know what your thoughts are. And as I mentioned in the previous video, if you like this sort of stuff, we'll certainly have more videos like this, but we also have a daily email that we talk about this sort of stuff. And if you're interested, feel free to sign up for that. There'll be a link below. And I appreciate you guys watching this, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.